I stood there in the magnificent family clubhouse, the smell of polished wood and costly wine filling the air, watching my wife's mother, Eleanor Whitmore, as she sipped her pricey imported drink. She held the glass like it was a crown, her lips curving into a chuckle that pierced through me like a knife. She was laughing at me, laughing at my membership application for the Whitmore Legacy Golf Club. "This club is for top members exclusively," she said, her voice dripping with that high and mighty tone she always used when she wanted to put me in my place. I could feel the heat swelling in my chest, but I didn't let it show. Beside her, my wife, Olivia, didn't even try to disguise her sneer. "Stick to public courses," she added, barely glancing in my direction, like I was some alien who didn't belong in her immaculate little world. Her words stung, sure, but I just smiled, a slow, quiet smile that touched all they didn't know about me. They thought they had me figured out, believed I was just some nobody they could brush off. But they had no idea what was coming. I turned and walked out of that stuffy clubhouse, my sneakers clicking on the marble floor, leaving them to their hubris. The huge doors swung shut behind me as the cool air outside smacked my face like a wake-up call. I didn't say a thing as I laughed, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I didn't need to. They could laugh all they wanted tonight, sip their wine, and pat themselves on the back for being so much better than me. But what? They didn't realize, what they couldn't even dream of, was that I already owned their mortgage. Yup, that huge, fat $100 million debt they thought was safely in some bank's hands. It was mine now. I'd bought it piece by piece through maneuvers they'd never see coming. And tomorrow morning, when the sun came up and they were still sleeping off their smug little party, their entire world would come crumbling down. Could already picture it. Eleanor's face growing pale, Olivia's smirk vanishing. They believed they were untouchable, but I was going to prove just how wrong they were. The journey home was peaceful, just me and my thoughts. The city lights blurred past the car window, but I wasn't really seeing them. My mind was on what was ahead, on the moment they'd find out the truth. I wasn't some broke loser they could laugh at. I'd been working for months, maybe even years, to get to this position. Every time they'd looked down on me, every cruel comment they'd made, it had just pushed me further. I had constructed something they couldn't even begin to understand, a strategy so tight, so perfect, they'd never see it coming until it was too late. My palms grasped the steering wheel a bit tighter as I thought about that application they'd laughed at. It wasn't even about the club, not really. It was about them believing they could keep me out, keep me small. Well, tomorrow they'd realize I wasn't small at all. I'd been playing a game they didn't even know existed, and I was about to win. When I arrived home, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I just stood in the dark living room, looking out the window at the silent street. Olivia wouldn't be home for hours. She'd stay at the clubhouse with her family, presumably still smiling over how they'd put me in my place. That was fine. Let her enjoy it while it lasted. I walked over to my desk, pulled out the folder I'd kept locked away, and flicked it open. There it was, the documentation, the proof, the mortgage documents, the bank transfers, all the careful steps I'd taken to get here. I ran my fingertips over the pages, feeling the weight of what they meant. This wasn't only about money. This was about power. About proving to them that they didn't own me. Tomorrow, at exactly 9 a.m., the foreclosure notice would hit, and they'd have no idea what to do. I closed the folder, leaned back in my chair, and let that slow smile return. They'd laughed at me tonight, but I'd be the one smiling tomorrow. The reckoning. That night I drove through Whitmore Estates, the posh, gated mansions towering up on both sides of the road, each one bigger and shinier than the last. The streetlights cast long shadows over the pristine lawns, and I couldn't help but think about how blind Olivia's family was. They thought they owned this place. Every house, every blade of grass, every stuck-up neighbor who waved at them like they were royalty. And yes, on the outside, it appeared like they had it all together. The Whitmore Legacy Golf Club, the enormous, magnificent facility her great-grandfather had built way back when, was their crown jewel. They acted like it was some indestructible empire, a sign of their supremacy that would last forever. But I understood the truth. That club had been hemorrhaging money for years, drowning in debt they couldn't pay off, no matter how much they pretended everything was fine. That $100 million mortgage they'd taken out to keep it going, it had gone into default months ago, and they didn't even realize I was the one controlling the reins now. I'd bought that debt 3 months back, and I'd done it so softly, so subtly, they'd never suspect a thing. No big declarations, no flashy moves, just a lot of dummy corporations, moving money around like pieces on a chessboard. It hadn't been easy. I'd spent nights huddled over my desk, figuring out how to make it work, calling in favors, talking to bankers who didn't care who I was as long as the numbers added up. But I pulled it off. I owned their debt, their precious club, their whole damn world, and they were still parading around like nothing could touch them. As I drove past the entrance to the golf club, its enormous iron gates glistening under the lights, I couldn't help but smirk. They thought they were so smart, laughing at me in that clubhouse, telling me I didn't belong. Well, they were about to find out exactly how wrong they were. A.M. The next morning at exactly 9 a.m., I sat in my downtown office, a plain, modest room with a desk, a chair, and a window overlooking the busy streets below. I wasn't at the Whitmore Legacy Golf Club, where Olivia's snooty family was undoubtedly enjoying their morning coffee, chatting about their wonderful lives. No, I didn't need to be there to know what was happening. Right at that moment, the foreclosure notice was being delivered to their boardroom. I could see it so clearly in my mind, Eleanor choking on her coffee, Charles's face turning red, Olivia just staring, too proud to admit she was terrified. My phone buzzed on the desk, a message from my legal team. Notice delivered. Reaction was immediate. They're freaking out. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my cheap coffee, and grinned. They had spent years acting like they were above everyone else, like nothing could touch them. And yet, here they were, scurrying like rats on a sinking ship. Another buzz. Eleanor's on the phone with the bank. They're not helping. Of course they weren't. I'd made sure of that. I had spent weeks closing every escape route, twisting every thread, making sure every door they tried to open would slam shut in their faces. The Whitmores thought money and connections could fix anything. But I had cut them off at the knees. They laughed at me. Now they were choking on their own arrogance. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the window. Tomorrow I'd make my next move. But for now, I'd just sit back and watch them squirm.